Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to call to order the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners. And tonight we'll be led in prayer by Commissioner Turner, and then Commissioner Gooch will lead us in the pledge.
Let's pray. Most gracious and loving Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you again for the opportunity that's been bestowed upon each one of us, Lord. Ask that you guide us in our decisions tonight, Lord, and that we continue to take this responsibility seriously that's been placed on our shoulders, Lord. We thank you for the men and women that are involved here, Lord, and we thank you for our citizens who are present, and we'll be speaking their voice this evening, Lord. Guide us again as we make these decisions tonight. Lord, ask that you continue to watch over our troops overseas as they continue to protect us and serve us, Lord, and represent America. I ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer. Here. Commissioner Black. Here. Commissioner Jordan. Here. Commissioner P. Here. Commissioner Cook. Here. Commissioner Jernigan. Commissioner Farley.
Here.
Commissioner Phillips.
Here.
Commissioner Sandlin. Here. Commissioner Turner. Here. Commissioner Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Stevens.
Here.
Commissioner Jordan. Here. Commissioner Baum. Here. Commissioner Coggin. Present. Commissioner Young. Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Ely, Commissioner Gooch, Commissioner Sereno. 21 present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. You have a copy of the minutes of the last meeting before you. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Sandlin.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
All right, do we have a second? Second, Commissioner Jernigan. Did anyone have any additions or corrections? There being none, all in favor of that, then please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. We have tonight 3 resolutions of recognition. And first, we'll call on Commissioner P. to recognize Brock Baker, our Oakland track champion.
I haven't had the privilege of meeting Mr. Baker. Is he in the audience? If he is, please come forward. That not being the case, we'll go ahead with our resolution. Whereas Oakland Junior Brock Baker became a double TSSAA state champion recently when he won the Class AAA 3,200-meter run and the 1,600-meter run state championship. And whereas this was the result of many hours of practice and hard work, whereas Brock won the Class AAA 1,600-meter run about 9 hours after winning the 3,200-meter run for his first 2 state championships, whereas he won the 3,200 in the morning with a time of 9:18.20 and came back that evening and won the 1,600 in 4:15.10 to be champion in track and field's 2 longest distance races. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners at its regular session on this 14th day of June, 2012, does hereby extend our congratulations to Brock Baker on winning the Class AAA 1,600-meter run and the 3,200-meter run state championships, and we wish him much success and happiness in all his future endeavors. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution of recognition be forwarded to Brock Baker by the clerk of this legislative body. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
And a second from Commissioner Jordan. That's well done, Commissioner P. All in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. And congratulations to Mr. Baker for a job well done. Next, we have Commissioner Baum, who will have a resolution of recognition on behalf of Ashley Bowles, Siegel tennis champion.
And I'd like to ask Ashley Bowles and her coach, Jeff Martin, to join me up here, please. Thank you. whereas Siegel Jr. Ashley Bowles became a TSSAA state champion recently when she won the Class AAA Tennis Individual State Championship, and whereas this was the result of many hours of practice and hard work, and whereas Ashley became the first Rutherford County girl to win a tennis individual state championship as she defeated Dobbins Bennett freshman Josie Rogers 6-0, 6-2 in the Class AAA singles final at Old Fort Park, and whereas no Rutherford County girl had won a singles or doubles title in the tournament's 49-year history before Ashley, now therefore be it resolved that the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners, at its regular session on this 14th day of June 2012, does hereby extend our congratulations to Ashley Bowles on winning the Class AAA Tennis Individual State Championship, and we wish her much success and happiness in all her future endeavors. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution and of recognition be forwarded to Ashley Bowles by the clerk of this legislative body. Congratulations.
Next, we have a resolution of recognition that will be presented by Commissioner Tiffany Phillips on behalf of Becca Browning, the Eagleville High Jump Champion. Okay, thank you for reminding us. On the last resolution, all of you, Commissioner Baum made a motion to adopt this resolution, and we have a second from, let's say, Mr. Jeff Jordan. And all of you in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, Tiffany, for reminding us.
Thank you, Mayor Burgess. I'd like to call forward Ms. Becca Browning and Coach Trail and Coach Calkin. This is a very exciting day in Eagleville history. Becca is the second one to win a state championship for Eagleville, so we're very proud. Thank you. Did you want to say anything? Okay, whereas Eagleville senior Becca Browning became a TSSAA state champion recently when she won the Class AAA high jump competition by clearing 5 feet 4 inches, and whereas this was the result of many hours of practice and hard work, and whereas Becca's parents are Jennifer and Anthony Browning, and whereas Becca is only the second Eagleville student who has ever won a TSSAA state title, and whereas she recently graduated and will be attending BYU in the fall, now therefore be it resolved that the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners, at its regular session on this 14th day of June 2012, does hereby extend our congratulations to Becca Browning on winning the Class AAA high jump state title, and we wish her much success and happiness in all her future endeavors. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution of recognition be forwarded to Becca Browning by the clerk of this legislative body. I so move.
Second from Commissioner Jernigan. All of you in favor of that, please say aye. 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 Thank you very much, and congratulations. Okay, next we have on our agenda a time for public comments, and there are 6 people that have requested to speak, and I will remind everyone that if this runs past 6:30, we'll have to come back and finish these public comments up, but we'll just have to see how that goes. First on our list is Mr. Donald Todd, and I'd ask each one of these speakers to come forward and give us your name and address, and we'll remind each of you that you have 3 minutes to make your statements.
My name is Donald Todd, and I live at 633 Buck Lane. Developing more transparency in financial record keeping. The over-appropriation of money to such major county funds as the Highway Fund is causing an accumulation of unspent surplus revenue in those funds. Taxpayers should be angry at this policy because it is the result of being taxed excessively. The taxpayers are learning that money from their pockets is not being used for the critical operations of government for which the appropriations were made. They are discovering that instead, their hard-earned money is being deposited in savings accounts earning a paltry 0.0012% interest. Much of it is also being used to purchase millions of dollars in CDs, certificates of deposit, with very little return on the investment. Citizens are increasingly angered when this excess tax money is not used to retire our nearly $500 million of county debt. As a first step toward stopping this misuse of funds, taxpayers are beginning to develop a method for observing which fund balance is the origin of the unspent surplus revenue and then follow its trail to the point where the money is deposited in savings accounts or is used to purchase CDs. Because this is the taxpayers' own money, they rightfully insist upon transparency of bookkeeping in order to prevent wasteful spending of it on non-productive CDs and ultra-low-interest savings accounts. The citizens' other choice is to call for an election to require the county to refund unspent surplus revenue to the taxpayers. Such an election took place in Colorado, and citizens succeeded in demanding a refund. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Susan Allen.
Good evening. My name is Susan Allen. I live on Nelson Lane in Murfreesboro, and I'm president of the Rutherford Neighborhood Alliance. Tonight I gave you a handout with 3 sheets, and you've seen each of these before because the last one you got on May 30th, and the first 2 sheets you got yesterday. As you discuss the county legal services tonight, we hope you'll consider the questions that the RNA sent to all of you on May 30th and presented at the steering committee meeting that evening. Those are questions that we will be expecting answers to as you deliberate tonight. The first 2 pages are the result of a study the RNA did to try to further our understanding of the presentation Mrs. Nolan made at the steering committee meeting, because county attorney costs are major items to consider. And this was sent to each of you yesterday. Commissioner Baum's proposal suggested that the general legal services may be obtained from the Cope Law Firm for $259,000 a year. This figure does not include income and expenses associated with the collection of delinquent tax fees that are included in the legal services agreement. Page 2 of your handout is a spreadsheet that shows a comparison of some of the budget costs associated with the county attorney's office with key information highlighted. Looking toward the bottom under adjustments, you'll see that payments to the Cope Law Firm for collection of delinquent taxes have ranged from about $79,000 to $161,000 for the period of study 2006 to 2012. Second, a Rutherford County employee at county expense prepares the documents for each delinquent tax collection. Since the legal services agreement took effect in 2010, the Cope Law Firm has reimbursed the county for 75% of the salary for the county employee who prepares the documents. These reimbursements are subtracted from the county attorney costs for those 2 years, and they're printed in red. Therefore, the actual cost to the county for the $259,000 bond proposal will be actually increased by about $160,000 based on the 2 prior years for collection of delinquent tax fees paid to the Cope Law Firm. and reduced by about $23,000 for the reimbursement to the county for the county employee. Even if the fees collected in the future are much lower, they will still go to the law firm and not to the county. Thus, using the estimated $160,000 figure, the total of the proposal to continue using the Cope Law Firm for general legal services and delinquent tax collection is actually $396,000. Consequently, the mayor's recommendation of $338,560 for an in-house attorney to provide general legal services and collection of delinquent taxes would be reduced by that amount. And as a result, the mayor's proposal is actually $217,440 less than the Baum proposal.
Could I ask Ms. Allen a question about her analysis?
No, we cannot do this during the public comment period. All she can do is comment. Now, you can later on suspend rules and get her back up here.
Okay.
Next on the list is Mr. Ronald Williams.
My name's Ron Williams. I live at 11090 Versailles Road in Rockville. And I'd just like to make a few comments about kind of titled, Appeal or Not to Appeal is the question I think we're all faced with. $188,657.70. That's $188,657.70 of taxpayers' money. How did we get to this point? Why did we get here? Have we gotten good or bad advice on this? There's a new TV show that's out that I noticed that kind of fits this situation. It's called Barely Legal. Taxpayers have relied on one source of public notice for years, the DNJ. Why was this changed? To save money or some other reason? Well, let's just say it was to save money. The projection was that we were to save approximately $6,000 a year. $188,657.70 equates to 30 years of savings. So how's that one working for us? Different people have come to the county commission and the various committees trying to get better public notice before this. A do-over, if you will. Everybody said, we've done nothing wrong, sue us. So far, $188,000, $657.70 we've spent. Why not stop and fix this issue? Whenever you advertise a legal notice, whichever paper you run it in, just put a small ad in the other paper saying it's over here. Put that on the website, put it on RCTV channel, or by just putting zoning signs on everything building site that's not a residence. Everybody gets notified. Let's not just be barely legal. Only the county commission, as I understand it, has the authority to hire attorneys, not the planning commission. The county has gotten an opinion from the state comptroller's office, which it began based on the information provided us, but it didn't tell us what information they gave us, and it ended, however, a judge has the final authority. The answer is appeal or not to appeal. We think not to appeal. Think smart. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker would be Mr. Avent Lane.
Good evening. My name is Avent Lane. I live at 221 North Highland Avenue in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And what I'm going to talk about tonight is the proposed legal service contract, questions and comments. And I have copies for the gentlemen and ladies here if they want to read later on the content of what I'm saying here. We propose that there be an independent legal review of the proposed contract for legal services for this county. The proposed contract, as presented to renew the county's legal services agreement, would produce a perpetual renewable contract. Our question is it legal to hire a county attorney without conducting an application or interview process for this governmental appointed employee position? It would seem that this is similar to the process for the director of schools positions. That is appointed and hired employee by the school board. It would appear that not allowing the opportunity to apply for the position of county attorney would be in violation of the federal Equal Opportunities Employment Act. For you and the county citizens at large benefit, let me read the current state law requested by this body to be passed for the county attorney position. Section 1 reads as follows: the county attorney shall be appointed or elected by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners. The terms, conditions, term of appointment, functions, and duties of the office of the county attorney shall be set forth in a written agreement approved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners. What I would like to point out for clarity is that this is a singular definition, meaning a single person hired as county attorney. And we are in agreement with the Commission's previous decision that this is a county employee and receives retirement and other benefits. Also, for you and the county citizens' benefit, let me read the current services agreement section on general legal services to be provided by the county attorney. Highlighting Section 2, Number 7, the county attorney provides services to the following: in legal advice and assistance to all representative staff and employees of Rutherford County. And the list is quite a long one. And I have the list here if you want to. The constraints of time keep me from telling you all this. If you want to know, I'm sure the mayor would be glad to read that for you. For you and the county citizens at large, for your benefit, let me read the current state law requested by this body to be passed for additional legal services. This is not the general, this is the additional legal services. Section 2 reads as, Rutherford County may enter such additional written agreements with private attorneys and law firms for the provision of additional legal services as the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners may deem appropriate. Outside of the general services, litigation is left for private attorneys and law firms. Under the current proposal, this would appear the county desires to hire only one law firm regardless of their experience. This entire thought should be revisited because it is paying for services before they are needed or known or as needed. This also needs review.
Please try to wrap that up if you would, please.
I've got about 15 seconds.
Okay.
This also needs review and determined where the vendor laws apply. Regardless of the quality of services being provided under the current arrangement, the county is exposing the taxpayer to additional risks of paying higher legal fees or settlements and more lawsuits by not adhering to the state and federal laws. Our call to action is we propose an independent legal review of the proposed contract for the legal services. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that.
All right, thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Jim Daniel.
Good evening. I'm here for about 2 or 3 points, really, and we'll hit those fast. The request for application for in-house counsel hasn't been advertised.
Mr. Daniel, would you give us your address, please?
Yes, it's 1407 Wall Street, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, 37130. This remains an unknown as to the request for applications. We don't know who would apply or what we'd have to pay. Even if startup costs for the new in-house counsel should be more than present costs for a time, it should result in less controversy and less cost in the long run over perceived conflict of interests. Conflicts of interest, if they are believed to exist, undermine confidence in the integrity of the legal actions taken. I have attached the list of clients on the law firm's website. It shows various public entities with whom a lawsuit could be reasonably possible. The purpose to avoid conflicts of interest is not a small one. Another problem is delays in court case. Take the mosque case, for instance. When suit was filed, there was no request for an order adding the mosque, but the mosque had a right to be served with official notice and an opportunity to be heard before any rights could be taken away from it. In fact, Rule 19 of the Tennessee Rules of Civil Procedure requires that the interested third party be joined either by the plaintiff or by the defendant or by the court. In yesterday's argument on the new motion by plaintiffs, Rule 19 was mentioned only by County Attorney Josh McCrary, but never really discussed or argued by the court or the parties. Somebody said the costs to date were over $188,000. Mr. Williams read that. It's not my intention to tell the county attorneys how to try their lawsuit, but you should ask your county attorney some questions. Why they did not vigorously defend the lawsuit from the very beginning. Why was Rule 19 not followed? Why did filing the motion for summary judgment wait so far into the trial? How much did these delays cost us in fees to our attorneys? One last point. Although the ICM complied with everything, once this litigation was underway, they sat back and did nothing. The only thing we heard was from the newspapers. So the question of laches, which is negligence or unreasonable delay in pursuing a legal remedy whereby a person forfeits his rights, may be a problem for the mosque. I'm not here to take sides. I'm here just to be sure the law is followed. And I ask that you carefully and scrupulously consider this as you do so. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes the public comment period, and we're almost right at 6:30. So I think without objection, we'll go ahead and start the public hearings and not I apologize, Ms. Coker. It's my error, and excuse me, please. Publicly, I did overlook Ms. Elizabeth Coker, so you come forward, please. Thank you for telling me. I saw you there, and then I skipped right over you.
Not a problem, Mayor. Appreciate the fact that the Bible is back on the court square. Thank you for putting it on 2 Corinthians. I'm going to address today a few comments. Thank you also, the former commissioner before me, for pointing out some other improprieties, I guess, in regard to the mosque case. Seems like there's never-ending issues here. I want to talk to you today about 2 years ago when I attended commission committees. On August the 3rd, I attended a Public Works Committee meeting. along with a number of other very concerned citizens of Rutherford County. And then on September the 27th, the day before the Moss trial, the preliminary hearing started, I presented a PowerPoint presentation to the Public Safety Committee. I believe Mr. Farley remembers that presentation quite vividly. I talked with him about it just the other day. And this PowerPoint presentation had some very serious information that we asked the Public Safety Committee to consider, and we never heard back from them. They were advised by the county attorney not to ask any questions. I was told not to leave any material, and we could not have a common discourse between the public and our commissioners. Why? Why was that necessary? This was before the preliminary trial started. Now, Mr. Jernigan was there at the Public Works Committee. Mr. McAdoo, I remember you telling me we were going to get some answers from that Public Works Committee. And 2 years later, we have no answers. I want to show you a picture. These are the Moss site underwater. Has anybody addressed the Moss site about the drainage? No, sir. Not at all. We haven't talked about a turning lane, nothing. None of those issues have been addressed. Okay. Do you know who this person is? Now, I wish we had that thing that went up here, to show the pictures, but we don't have it tonight. But you see this little fellow right here? He looks like somebody in a Vacation Bible School play. Nice old gentlemanly, grandfatherly figure. He is the founder of Hamas. This picture was on the website of one of the members, the board members of the Islamic Center of Murfreesboro. Now, I presented that information to the Public Safety Commission, and it never went anywhere. Now, we entered this into the court trial. It's testimony, and the judge never contested it. We know for a fact that it's true, that it was on Mossad Rawash's website. What I have asked Mr. Farley to do is to forward that information to the planners before they consider this site plan review any further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Coker. Okay, now we will start the period of public hearings. And the first one we have is a rezoning and conditional use permit request number 12-A004, Michael Villanova. It's located at 9304 Independent Hill Road. The existing zoning is R15. The requested zoning is agricultural services. A requested conditional use permit for dog daycare and boarding facility on approximately 21 acres. Mr. Demosi.
Yes, Mayor Burgess, thank you, and good evening, Mayor and members of the Commission. We have two zoning applications for your review tonight. This first is located along Independent Hill Road. The applicant is proposing to convert an existing accessory building into a dog daycare and boarding facility called Dogwood Hollow. The facility will include 20 private kennels and an inside and outside play area. Hours of operation will be Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday by appointment only. The applicant and his wife will continue to live on the property. They'll be the only employees located at the business for the foreseeable future. The site is very heavily landscaped, which will go a long way in satisfying the buffering requirements. Site plan will be required. Most of the work that they will be doing will be on the existing accessory building on the property. We did recommend when the applicants first came into our office, a zoning classification of the agricultural services. The reason we did that is we felt that under our new zoning ordinance, this use would translate better in what we're calling our agricultural residential zone, our AR zone, as this type of use would be permitted by special exception or conditional use. Basically, it's the same thing. We didn't feel as comfortable recommending a commercial type classification such as services or something like that for this property, with the understanding that if this were zoned that way as a more commercial classification under the new ordinance, it would allow more commercial type uses that may not be appropriate for that area. Other than that, the public hearing, there was, as I recall, no one came up to speak about this. The Planning Commission did recommend unanimously in favor of this application. And I believe the applicants are present, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of Mr. Demosi before we have the public hearing? Okay, thank you, Mr. Demosi. All right, then we're going to declare the public hearing open for this rezoning and conditional use permit request on behalf of Mr. Michael Villanova. If there are those present that wish to speak for or against this application, please come forward and give us your name and address and make your statement. So it's open for comments. Who would like to speak? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak? Okay, I don't see anyone rising to speak. Therefore, we're going to close the public hearing. And is there a motion concerning this request? Commissioner Sandlin.
Mr. Chairman, this is in my district, and I've had no calls on it. Well, actually, I did have 2 calls on it. They were just concerned what it was, and they were okay with it. So I'll make a motion that we approve with the conditions that the Planning Commission has set forth.
Second, Commissioner Allen. Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, then you're ready to vote. All of you in favor of that, then please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. The second request is a rezoning request number 12-A005 on behalf of Mike Hollingshead, and that's located at 7279 Mona Road. The existing zoning is for services, and the requested zoning is R15 on approximately 1.45 acres. Mr. Demosi.
Yes, Mayor Burgess, thank you. As you stated, this piece of property is located along Mona Road. This is actually part of the Cedar Crest Golf Course, which was approved back in 1997. It's a very small portion of the course, which is not really utilized by the golf course. It turns out that the step system that serves the golf course and the adjacent subdivision can handle more lots than it had when it was originally approved due to some regulation changes. So basically what the applicant is asking for, since this particular portion of the course isn't really used for anything, they just would like to make 2 residential lots out of the property. So they're asking for a rezoning from services with the conditional use for the golf course back to just R15. Other than that, this is a pretty straightforward application. I'll be happy to answer any questions. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this unanimously.
Anyone have any questions of Mr. Demosi? All right, thank you, sir. That being the case, then we're going to declare the public hearing open with respect to this rezoning request number 12-A005. And again, if there's anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this application, please come forward and give us your name and address and make your statement. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak for or against this application? There being no one that wishes to speak, then the public hearing is closed. And do we have a motion concerning this request? Commissioner Jordan.
I make a motion to approve, subject to all staff comments.
Second, Commissioner Black. Any other discussion? All right, then, all in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Gooch, we're ready for elections and confirmations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. Steering has several items for your consideration this evening. On your desk, you will find a list of notary candidates. I move for their election, Mr. Chair.
Second from Commissioner Jernigan and Commissioner Turner. All in favor of the election of these notaries, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Second, we need to announce 2 vacancies on the Community Care Board. Thirdly, we need to fill 2 vacancies on the Linebaugh Library Board. Steering nominates Mrs. Sumer Clark and Mr. Richard Garvin, Jr. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second, Commissioner Serino. Any discussion on this? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you.
And finally, we need to fill vacancies on the Road Board and School Board Zone Committee. Steering nominates Mr. Keith Bratcher, representing the Road Board, Mr. Aaron Holliday, representing the School Board, Commissioner Jeff Phillips, representing the County Commission, Mr. Edward Phillips, Jr., representing the unincorporated area, along with Mr. Coy Young, representing the unincorporated area. The Mayor of Laverne recommends Mrs. Tanya Nail. The Mayor of Eagleville nominates Mr. Don Lamb, the Mayor of Murfreesboro, Mr. Jim Subberfield, and the Mayor of Smyrna, Mr. Jerome Dempsey. And I move for their approval, Mr. Chair.
Second, Commissioner Black. Commissioner Phillips.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like the record to show that I abstain from this vote.
Farley.
I want a clarification in steering. I wanted to make sure so every position has been applied for.
Yes, sir.
That was set forth in the
right
for the committee.
Other questions or discussion? Okay. All in favor of this, then, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much, Mr. Gooch. And Ms. Taylor will be polling all of these entities and others to see when a date can be set for their first meeting, and we'll, over the next week or so, hopefully get that done. Okay, there's no unfinished business tonight. Now we're ready to start the reports by the standing committees, and there is a report from our purchasing committee. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Cook, and a second, Commissioner Jernigan. Any discussion on the purchasing committee report? All in favor of that, then please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Next, we're ready for Commissioner Ely on the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee report.
Item K2A, the General Fund Budget Amendments. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the General Fund be amended as follows. The 2011-2012 revenue adjustments, according to the schedule attached here to is Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein by reference as if set forth herein at length verbatim. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be doing revenue adjustments for all of the funds tonight. This adjusting of revenues is to reflect the actual collections through the end of June. And the first one is following this first page of budget amendments for the general fund. And you will notice there is an increase to revenue of $4,579,887. There is an increase to reserves and expenditures of $2,885,572. And there is a net increase to unassigned fund balance of $1,694,315. From the Election Commission, we have a budget amendment, increased revenue, other general government grants, $64,474, increased expenditures for rentals, $64,474. This is for voting machines. County buildings, from unassigned fund balance, $12,000, to contracts with government agencies, $12,000. This is to provide funding for landscaping services for around the courthouse. Unemployment compensation, from employee benefits, unemployment compensation, $20,000, unassigned fund balance, $24,359. Increased revenue, other state revenue, $7,842. Health Department programs, $4,500. Increased expenditures. These are the departments where expenditures have actually occurred. Election, unemployment compensation, $112. Register of Deeds, $872. County buildings, $1,622. Risk management, $2,548. Assessor, $17,811. OIT, $236. Sheriff, $5,000. RCCWC, $9,000, juvenile detention, $5,000, PAWS, $10,000, and other local health, $4,500. From the Sheriff's Department and Jail, increased revenue from the sale of recycled materials, $5,017, increased expenditures for jail maintenance and repair of buildings, $5,017. Increased revenue from sale of materials and supplies, $2,350. Increased expenditure, the sheriff, Other contracted services, $1,373. Jail, other supplies and materials, $30. Sheriff office supplies, $750. Jail office supplies, $197. Increased revenue from contributions and gifts, $1,893. Increased expenditures, Sheriff other contracted services, $1,094. Sheriff other supplies and materials, $799. Increased revenue, contracted services, $3,345. Increased expenditures, the sheriff overtime pay, $2,779, and the related benefits. Increased revenue, contributions, $1,775. Increased expenditures to in-service training, $1,775. From unassigned fund balance, $50,000 to communications equipment, $50,000. From jail maintenance agreements, $6,000, and sheriff jury expense, $10,000 to jail utilities, $16,000. From unassigned fund balance, $49,897 to jail captains, $8,600, lieutenants, $6,500, sergeants, $6,700, and maintenance personnel, $1,800. To jail guards, $65,000, and the related benefits. Increased revenue, contract for administration services, LEAs, $11,516, to increased expenditures of the sheriff overtime pay, $9,572, and the related benefits. And this is to provide security for after-school functions. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Sandlin, any questions or discussion? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
Yes, 1 abstain. Motion passes.
Item K2B, a special purpose DEA fund. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the special purpose or the DEA fund be amended as follows. First, we have the 2011-2012 revenue adjustments. Increased revenue, investment income, $227. Increase to restricted for public safety, $227. Sheriff's Department increased revenue, asset forfeiture funds, $18,810. Increased expenditures, in-service training, $8,810. Confidential enforcement, $10,000. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second, Commissioner Jernigan. Any questions? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
And record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Item K2C, Drug Control Fund Budget Amendments. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the Drug Control Fund be amended as follows. The 2011-2012 revenue adjustments. Increased revenue, proceeds from confiscated property, $15,000. Contract for administration services, LEAs, $141. Sale of equipment, $17,864. Decreased revenue, interest income, $845. Increased expenditure, trustees commission, $350. To an increase for restricted for public safety, $31,810. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Commissioner Sandlin, second. Any questions? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Item K2D, Ambulance Service Fund Budget Amendments. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the Ambulance Service Fund be amended as follows. The 2011-2012 revenue adjustments. Increased revenues as listed, total $962,450. Decreased revenues as listed, total $45,031. Increased expenditures, Trustees Commission, $3,100. Increase to assign for public health and welfare, $914,319. Emergency medical service from assigned for public health and welfare, $45,000. To maintenance and repair of vehicles, $25,000. Drugs and medical supplies, $10,000. Utilities, $10,000. Increased revenue from patient charges, $5,000. Increased expenditures, refunds, $5,000. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. I move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second, Commissioner Sandlin. Any questions? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Be it resolved by the item K2E. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the Solid Waste Sanitation Fund be amended as follows. The 2011-2012 revenue adjustments, increased revenues as listed, $827,888. Decreased revenue from solid waste grants, $12,069. Increased expenditures, Trustees Commission, $11,200. Increase for assigned for public health and welfare, $804,619. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Black. Any questions? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote or wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Item K2F, the Highway Fund Budget Amendments. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the Highway Fund be amended as follows. The 2011-2012 revenue adjustments are on the next page, gentlemen. And for the Highway Fund, there is a net increase to revenues and fund balance of $482,608. Highway and bridge maintenance, an increased revenue from sale of materials and supplies, $60,000. Increased expenditures, asphalt, $60,000. Operation and maintenance of equipment from highway and bridge maintenance, employee and dependent insurance, $6,900. To operation and maintenance of equipment, employee and dependent insurance, $6,900. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. I move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Serino, any questions? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Item K2G, General Purpose School Fund Budget Amendments. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the General Purpose School Fund be amended according to the schedules attached hereto as Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein by reference as if set forth herein at length verbatim. And for the benefit of the Budget Committee, when Mr. Sandvig presented the amendments at our last meeting on Thursday, you will remember there was one for unemployment. That was all within category and does not require commission action, so that will not be presented tonight. But we do have grants and donations, page 2 of 2, to amend $142,360 in grants, donations, and other revenues. And Mr. Sandvig also acknowledged when he presented this budget amendment on Thursday the generosity of the Jennings Jones Foundation to the Board of Education. Utilities and transportation, page 1 of 1, to amend water and sewer by $25,000, transportation contracts with other agencies by $21,700, contracts with vehicle owners by $175,000, and to reduce natural gas by $221,700. Substitute teachers, page 2 of 2, to increase the budget for substitute teachers throughout the general purpose school budget by $323,000 and to fund the expenditure by reallocating available salary and benefit dollars. Insurance, page 6 of 6, to increase the budget for medical insurance $504,780 and other employee benefits $70,846, and to fund the total of $575,626 in expenditures by reallocating available salary and benefit dollars. And the last one from the general purpose schools, technology and other, to amend a total of $205,000 in already budgeted expenditures to the appropriate function object lines for the technology budget, the virtual enterprise program, and bus cameras and parts. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second, Commissioner Jordan. Any questions? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Item K2H, General Debt Service Fund Budget Amendments. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the General Debt Service Fund be amended as follows. The 2011-2012 revenue adjustments, increased revenues as listed, $1,347,200. Decreased revenue as listed, $133,685. Increased expenditures, Trustees Commission, $12,290. Increase to assigned for debt service, $1,201,225. Interest on bonds from education interest on bonds, $603,800. To general government interest on bonds, $20,500. And assigned for debt service, $583,300. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second, Commissioner P. Any questions? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Item K2I, a resolution authorizing salary supplement agreement with the Tennessee Department of Health. Whereas Rutherford County desires to enter into an agreement with the Tennessee Department of Health for the provision of employee services in the amount of $8,134. Therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the county mayor be and is hereby authorized to execute an agreement with the State of Tennessee Department of Health in the amount of $8,134 for the provision of employee services for the period of July 1, 2012 through June 30, 2013. A copy of the same being attached here too as Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein by reference as if set forth herein at length verbatim. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. I move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second, Commissioner Jernigan. Any questions? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Item K2J, a resolution authorizing a grant contract with Tennessee Department of Health for the provision of local county health services. Whereas Rutherford County desires to enter into a contract agreement with the Tennessee Department of Health for the provision of local health services in the amount of $2,008,500, which is a no-cost contract to Rutherford County, with said costs being reimbursed dollar for dollar. Therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the county mayor be and is hereby authorized to execute a grant contract with the State of Tennessee Department of Health in the amount of $2,008,500 for the provision of local health services commencing on July 1, 2012, ending June 30, 2013. A copy of the same being attached here too is Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein by reference as if set forth herein at length verbatim. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second, Commissioner Allen. Any questions? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Item K2K, a resolution authorizing Amendment 5 of grant contract with the Tennessee Department of Human Services for child support enforcement. Whereas at the regular meeting on June 8, 2008, the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners approved a grant contract with the Tennessee Department of Human Services for the provision of 4D child support services. And whereas Rutherford County and the Tennessee Department of Human Services desire to extend the grant contract to June 30, 2013. And whereas the maximum liability of the state under the grant for the period of July 1, 2008 through June 30, 2013 shall not exceed $164,320, with the grant contract for July 1, 2012 through June 30, 2013 being $34,160, and the grantee match being $17,598. Therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the county mayor be and is hereby authorized to execute Amendment 5 to the contract with the Tennessee Department of Human Services, a copy of the same being attached hereto as Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein as is set forth herein at length verbatim, extending the grant contract to June 30, 2013. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Schaefer. Any questions? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Item K2L, a resolution authorizing license agreement with the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation for office space rental. Whereas the State of Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation desires to enter into an agreement with Rutherford County for the purpose of securing approximately 1,560 square feet of office and related space located at number 1 South Public Square, room 215, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, 37130, for the groundwater protection staff. And whereas the term of the agreement shall begin with July 1, 2012 and end on June 30, 2013. And whereas the state shall make payment in arrears on the last day of the payment period in the amount of $650 per month. Therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the county mayor be and is hereby authorized to execute a license agreement with the State of Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, a copy of the same being attached hereto as Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein by reference as if set forth herein at length verbatim, on behalf of Rutherford County for office space for the groundwater protection staff payable in arrears on the last day of the payment period with monthly installments of $650 effective July 1, 2012. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. I move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second, Commissioner Sandlin. Any questions? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Item K2M, a resolution authorizing funding for Stewart Creek Farms road completion. Whereas the developer of Stewart Creek Farms subdivision has filed bankruptcy and the roads in the subdivision have not been completed. And whereas the developer was required to pay a bond in the amount of $31,860 and said bond has been called. And whereas bids have been taken and the cost to complete the road work in the Stewart Creek Farms subdivision is $62,075. And whereas additional funding in the amount of $30,215 is needed to complete the road work, and it is being proposed to appropriate the funds from the development tax to provide the funding. Therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the county mayor and any other appropriate officials of Rutherford County, Tennessee, be and are hereby authorized to execute all necessary documents on behalf of Rutherford County to complete the roads in the Stewart Creek Farms subdivision, and that the general fund be amended as follows: to provide a transfer to the General Capitals Project Fund to complete the project. From restricted for capital, $30,215, to transfers out, $30,215. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second, Commissioner Jernigan. Any questions? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Item K2N, a resolution authorizing facsimile signature for Rutherford County trustee warrant account at First Tennessee Bank. Whereas First Tennessee Bank National Association is the depository bank for the Rutherford County trustee account, and whereas the undersigned is the county mayor for Rutherford County, Tennessee, and whereas First Tennessee Bank is authorized and directed to honor checks, drafts, or other orders for the payment of money drawn on the Rutherford County trustee account, account number 102012545, bearing or purporting to bear the facsimile signatures as follows: the General Fund, Ernest G. Burgess, County Mayor; Lisa A. Nolan, Finance Director. Road and Bridge Fund, James M. Williams, Road Superintendent; Ernest G. Burgess, County Mayor; Lisa A. Nolan, Finance Director. General Purpose School Fund, Mark Burns, Chairman of the Board; Marvin D. Odom, Director of Schools; Lisa A. Nolan, Finance Director. Whereas First Tennessee Bank National Association shall be entitled to honor and to charge the account for such checks, drafts, or other orders, regardless of by whom or by what means the actual or purported facsimile signature thereon may have been affixed thereto, if such signature resembles the facsimile specimen duly certified to or filed with First Tennessee Bank National Association. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners of Rutherford County, Tennessee, that the county mayor and other appropriate officials of Rutherford County be and are hereby authorized to execute the certified resolutions of lodge, association, or similar unincorporated organization deposit accounts and loans with First Tennessee Bank National Association, a copy of the same being attached hereto as Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein by reference as if set forth herein at length verbatim, authorizing the facsimile signatures for the Rutherford County trustee account as listed in the foregoing resolution, effective July 1, 2012. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second, Commissioner Schaefer.
Mr. Chairman, one question. We've got two on there that's coming off. We still have to do this, I guess, till September 1 when the two new members come on. You're doing it again.
Other questions? All in favor of this, please say aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Item K2O, a resolution authorizing the facsimile signature for Rutherford County payroll account at SunTrust Bank.
Excuse me, Commissioner Pete. Yes.
Why are we giving out these account numbers?
The account numbers? Commissioner, Ms. Nolan, can you respond?
They're out there. They're on the checks.
There's not a risk to us.
No, and actually we've got some other controls in place to protect the county.
Rest my mind a little bit. I don't let my accounts out of my sight, or try not to, even though somebody wouldn't find much money in them.
We've started a process of Positive Pay where we send information to the banks of all checks that we write, and so they know before the check even comes through which ones that we've authorized.
Whereas SunTrust Bank Nashville, Tennessee, is the depository bank for Rutherford County payroll account. And whereas the undersigned is the county mayor for Rutherford County, Tennessee. And whereas SunTrust Bank Nashville is authorized and directed to honor checks, drafts, or other orders for the payment of money drawn on the Rutherford County payroll account, account number 70200381118, bearing or purporting to bear the facsimile signatures as follows: for the General Fund, Ernest G. Burgess, County Mayor; Lisa A. Nolan, Finance Director; Road and Bridge Fund, James M. Williams, Road Superintendent; Ernest G. Burgess, County Mayor; Lisa A. Nolan, Finance Director; General Purpose School Fund, Mark Burns, Chairman of the Board; Marvin D. Odom, Director of Schools; Lisa A. Nolan, Finance Director. Whereas SunTrust Bank Nashville shall be entitled to honor and to charge the account for such checks, drafts, or other orders, regardless of by whom or by what means the actual or purported facsimile signature thereon may have been affixed thereto, if such signature resembles the facsimile specimen duly certified to or filed with SunTrust Bank Nashville. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners of Rutherford County, Tennessee, that the county mayor and other appropriate officials of Rutherford County be and are hereby authorized to execute the corporate resolution and certificate of incumbency, the deposit accounts, a copy of the same being attached hereto as Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein by reference as if set forth herein at length verbatim, authorizing the facsimile signatures for the Rutherford County payroll account as listed in the foregoing resolution, effective July 1, 2012. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second, Commissioner Jordan. Any questions? All in favor of that, then, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.
Item K2P, a resolution authorizing a contract to purchase property for office space for the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department. Whereas at the regular meeting on March 15, 2012, the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners authorized the county mayor to search and negotiate for up to $1 million for the purpose of acquiring, renovating, and equipping additional office space for the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department, and additionally authorized $1 million from the 2012 bond issue be reallocated from the Joe B. Jackson Parkway project to provide the necessary funding. And whereas the county mayor has made an offer to purchase property located at 964 New Salem Road, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, 37129, containing a building of approximately 12,000 square feet for a purchase price of $750,000, subject to the following conditions that will be determined by Rutherford County. 1, successful negative results from a Phase 1 environmental study on the property and building. 2, successful evaluation of the working condition of the HVAC systems in the building. 3, successful determination that the oil spills can be corrected to allow proper sealing and floor covering for habitation. 4, final approval by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners. Therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the county mayor and any other appropriate officials of Rutherford County, Tennessee, be and are hereby authorized to proceed with acquiring property located at 964 New Salem Road, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, 37129, for use by the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department for a purchase price of $750,000, subject to the conditions listed above and subject to the final contract being agreed to by all parties. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second, Commissioner Cook and others. Any discussion? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
Yes, motion passes.
I have a question, Commissioner Jernigan. I didn't hear what. Excuse me. All right, sir. Thank you. I appreciate that. There is no report from the Health and Education Committee or the Property Management Committee or Public Safety, and Mr. Turner will give the report on Public Works and Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Whereas Rutherford County, Tennessee is vitally interested in the economic welfare of its citizens and wishes to provide the necessary leadership to enhance this area's capabilities for growth and development, and whereas the provision of jobs to area citizens by local industry is both necessary and vital to the economic well-being of Rutherford County, and whereas the Industrial Act of 1959 authorizes the Tennessee Department of Transportation to contract with cities and counties for the construction and maintenance of industrial highways to provide access to the industrial areas and to facilitate the development and expansion of industries within the state of Tennessee. Whereas the McCormick Industrial Subdivision is planned for construction on Jefferson Pike, Rutherford County, Tennessee, and whereas the construction of an industrial access road to serve McCormick Industrial Subdivision is necessary and vital to the successful completion of this project and the future economic well-being of this area. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that a contract be entered into with the Tennessee Department of Transportation for assistance in construction and completion of the herein proposed industrial access highway under the provisions of the Industrial Highway Act of 1959, and the appropriate officials for and on behalf of Rutherford County are hereby authorized to sign said contract. Resolved this 14th day of June 2012, Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Commissioner Black, any discussion or questions? All in favor of this, then please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.
Second resolution. Whereas the Rutherford County Highway Department is the owner of a 1991 Mack 4-ton dump truck model DM690S, VIN number 1M2B209C2MM008580, and whereas the dump truck is declared by the County Highway Department to be used surplus personal property to be disposed of by the County Highway Department, and whereas TCA 12-13-105 provides that notwithstanding any other provisions of the law, Rutherford County, the Rutherford County Highway Department, and Consolidated Utility District of Rutherford County, Tennessee, may, upon approval of their governing bodies, purchase, trade, or receive as a gift any used or surplus personal property between themselves without regard to any laws regarding public advertisement and competitive bidding. Whereas the Rutherford County Highway Department and Rutherford County are desirous of transferring and trading the aforementioned vehicle to Consolidated Utility District of Rutherford County, Tennessee. Whereas Consolidated Utility District of Rutherford County, Tennessee is desirous of receiving said surplus personal property as a gift from the Rutherford County Highway Department in Rutherford County. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Commission, the Rutherford County Highway Commission, and Consolidated Utility District of Rutherford County, Tennessee, that they agree pursuant to TCA 12-3-105 to trade and exchange the aforementioned 1991 Mack 4-ton dump truck, model DM690S, VIN number 1M2B209C2MM008580, from the Rutherford County Highway Commission to Consolidated Utility District of Rutherford County, Tennessee, and that this resolution shall act as full authority and authorization for the execution by all officials of the aforementioned parties to sign and execute any and all documents necessary for the transfer and exchange of the aforementioned 1991 Mack 4-ton dump truck. Said officials be and the same are hereby authorized to sign and execute any and all necessary documents. Resolved pursuant to resolutions adopted by the aforementioned governing bodies as follows. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second, Commissioner Young. Any questions? All in favor of that, then please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The report from the Steering Legislative and Governmental Committee, Commissioner Coggin.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a resolution
for the legal services agreement. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners to extend the contract with James C. Cope and the law firm of Cope, Hudson, Reed, and McCrary, PLLC, for legal services for a period of 2 years based on Commissioner Charlie Baum's resolution. A copy of said resolution being attached here to is Exhibit 1, with an appropriate amendment to the existing legal services agreement to be executed and entered into. Resolved this 14th day of June, 2012. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second, Commissioner Stevens. Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to offer an amendment to this resolution. And before I do that, I wanted to thank the Rutherford Neighborhood Alliance for all the work that they've put into coming to the meetings and researching this legal services agreement. At our steering meeting, they gave us a handout with some suggestions and some questions, and we unfortunately did not really talk about those. And they did have some good ideas, and I think that the overall agreement would be improved if we incorporate some of their ideas into that. And so specifically, I'd like to add the following language. One, that the county attorney reports to and is accountable to the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners. And then, in the event that the county attorney becomes incapacitated, is convicted of a criminal offense, or has been subject to public disciplinary action by the Board of Professional Responsibility, that the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners may terminate this legal services agreement without penalty. And that's my motion.
Second. Commissioner Baum. Commissioner P.
I was at this meeting, and that's not the form that I'm reading it, or maybe I hadn't got all the way through it yet. It's not the motion that was made. Since this is not the motion that was made, I would amend also that the entire motion that was made be connected to this agreement. And that part of that motion that's not on here, or what was agreed to at the steering committee, was that we would continue and find a permanent county attorney and be searching for one. I don't see that anywhere on here. Do y'all? One other question. Who prepared this document? Who prepared it?
Yeah, the resolution document was prepared by Ms. Shelton. Let's see. I don't know quite. You've raised the question about whether this resolution here reflects the action taken by the steering committee, and I don't know quite how to respond to that. We have to let some of the other people speak. Commissioner Phillips.
The way I understood the motion at the steering committee was, I think Commissioner Sandlin moved, second by Commissioner Gooch, to approve the process with the county mayor's recommendation to establish an in-house attorneys committee. And I think that's what Commissioner P is referring to. I don't know whether the amendment changed all that or not, and that's what I'm confused about as well, and still confused. It appears that after a lot of discussion, and I was there, and I was part of that discussion, but that Commissioner Stevens moved, and it was seconded by Commissioner Jordan, to amend the original motion to extend the contract with Cope's law firm for 2 years based upon Commissioner Baum's resolution. And that passed. I think it was 4-3. So does that mean that in 2 years we'll look for and find our own in-house county attorney? Is that what that means?
Maybe it's determined somewhat by, quote, Robert Rules of Order. I think there was another bit of discussion regarding that, even following what Commissioner Phillips just said, in that there was a motion made, I think, by Mr. Stevens to basically say that the first part of that original motion was not appropriate and to be done away with, but that didn't receive a second. And then there was a vote that went on to, I don't have my notes here with me, but I may not be saying this properly. Commissioner Stevens can correct me. And then the last motion did receive approval to, I have the minutes here somewhere of that meeting. Then the next thing that occurred, the original motion, as amended, passed by roll call vote, I think with maybe 5-2. So the original motion in the minutes of the actual steering committee, as amended, passed by roll call vote. Commissioner P.
Mr. Chairman, I want to apologize for throwing that in there right then, but it caught me by surprise when I didn't see what I expected to see. I am in favor of Commissioner Stevens' amendments. I think that, you know, it's a good thought to add those things in there. So I didn't want to deter from that at all, and wanted to let everybody know that. However, I feel like we should continue looking for our in-house attorney. If the commission decides to extend Attorney Cope's contract, I mean, that's what we'll be doing. But the way I understand that, and from what I heard you read, I still have the understanding that we'd be continuing to look for an in-house attorney to take office within 2 years. Is that correct?
Well, that is one interpretation of this. I don't think there's unanimous consent that everyone agrees with that interpretation. And Mr. Stevens did not agree with that interpretation. Did you wish to speak, Commissioner Sandlin?
Well, we may need to go ahead and get the amendment out of the way so we can get back to the motion and really discuss it really good, and I'll yield to that.
Right. Mr. Stevens has put his motion and amendment in writing. We have that here.
Yeah, he needs, Mr. P made a second motion to amend. He needs to withdraw that if he wants to go back to Mr.
Okay. It's been noted, Mr. P, that you made a second motion to amend, and we didn't get a second on that, I don't believe. But in any event, will you withdraw that motion until we deal with this amendment? Thank you.
So we read the amendment, and then let's...
I'll read the amendment. It's in the system. It's already been prepared and placed therein. The amendment to the legal services agreement to add the following languages in the legal services contract. The county attorney reports to and is accountable to the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners. In the event that the county attorney becomes incapacitated, is convicted of a criminal offense, or has been subject to a public disciplinary action by the Board of Professional Responsibility, the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners may terminate this legal services agreement without penalty. Is that correct, Mr. Stevens? That's the amendment that's before you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Phillips.
How can we vote on an amendment when I still don't know what the motion is? The motion that was read by the chairman of the steering committee appears to me it's not the motion that came out of the steering committee, and I want to know what I'm voting on. Somebody needs to give me an answer. The original motion was to proceed with the search for the new county attorney, and then there was an amendment made to that. If we pass this motion that was presented by the chairman of the steering committee, is that the same motion as the original motion that was passed, amended and then passed at the steering committee? I need to know that before I vote on an amendment.
Point well taken, but we have two people that wish to speak, Commissioner Coggin and then Commissioner Farley.
Thank you, Mayor. Clearly, this resolution, as I read, does not reflect a 2-year extension. I mean, it does not reflect, I'm sorry, it does reflect 2-year extension, but does not state anything in there about proceeding with an in-house legal department. So that's how it reads right now.
Commissioner Farley.
I'm on steering, and the way I understood the vote and the motion that night is that's not the motion that was passed. The motion that was passed 5-2, which I supported, was this plus going to an in-house attorney's office within that 2-year period. That was the motion that I understood that passed that night. And I'm like other commissioners, I'm wondering why it's not in there.
McAdoo.
Since we have this massive confusion from some of the steering committee members, we got 7 steering committee members in here. I would like to hear all 7 steering committee members' input on this motion, if this is the motion or if it's not the motion. Because now I'm totally confused. Some say it is and some say it isn't coming out of steering committee. So the 7 steering committee members should be able to tell us which motion is coming out of your committee.
Anyone else wish to speak that hasn't already spoken? Commissioner Black.
Well, I agree with Commissioner Farley. I concur with him. That's the motion I understood also.
Others that wish to speak? Let's see. Mr. Sandlin, I think Commissioner Stevens might be next, and we're sort of going around the second turn now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The motion on the floor was to create the in-house law office. I offered an amendment to extend the contract with Jim Cope and his office for 2 years. Now, logically, why would we have a 2-year extension with Jim Cope and also have an in-house law office? There's 3 different ways that you can affect a motion or amend a motion. The first one is to add language to it. The second way is to delete language from it. And then the third way is a combination of both, or a substitution. That's what my amendment did. It took the original language and deleted it and replaced it with the 2-year extension with Jim Cope's law office. And that's what was approved 4-3. When that was voted on 4-3, it changed the entire motion to what the language of the amendment was. So when we voted on the original motion as amended, what came out of the committee is exactly what was read here tonight. There was a lot of confusion afterward about what we had voted on, but the fact is the amendment changed the whole resolution to what we just studied. If I would not have offered the amendment at that time, and the original motion had passed 4-3 or 5-2, I would not have had the opportunity to offer my amendment. So I had to offer the adverse amendment, the hostile amendment to the original motion on the floor, if I wanted the opportunity for that to be voted on. Otherwise, I would have run the risk that the original motion passed and I would be barred from bringing my amendment back up at the meeting. I'd have to wait till the commission meeting to do that. So that's why I offered it. That's what was approved 4-3, and then that's what the committee voted on 5-2. That's straight from Robert's Rules of Order, from my understanding, and I think that what Commissioner Coggin read is exactly what we voted on.
Commissioner Sandlin.
Well, I'm not an attorney, but I did have a good night's sleep last night. I was asked to withdraw my motion, but I wouldn't do it because that took out the part of us looking at an in-house attorney. Something we did 2 years ago, which I think we're way off track anyway. This is something that we did as a whole, as a county commission, of not just, hey, y'all want an in-house attorney, we voted for it and boom, it's done. We're talking about 2 years of work. We're talking about sending it to the state to change our laws so we could have an in-house attorney. The mayor went through the whole proceedings at steering the other night, laid it all out on the line, the subcommittee that was there. Commissioner Rogers at that time, that was an attorney, was on there. Commissioner Jim Daniels, that was commissioner at that time, was on there. That are also attorneys with Jim Cope, and I don't know if there's any others at your office or whatever. Sit down. This is a well drawn out, above table plan that we approved. Now, I understand that there's 7 new commissioners that come on after that was done, and either you're for it or against it. I understand that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a plan to have an in-house attorney for Rutherford County. So that's the thing in hand. Either you're for it or against it. Some have even said that I didn't vote for that. You did. The records show you did. What they understood, though, was that they voted for an extension, a 2-year extension for a county attorney to carry on the business. I understand that, but that's not what we've been talking about for a number of years. I think we're down here tonight. Amendment, motion, that's not the motion that come out of steering, period. Commissioner Coggin, I don't know what happened to it, but that's not it. Like I said, I'm not an attorney, Mr. Commissioner Stevens, but that's not the motion that came out of the steering committee. And I want that motion back on the floor. But I think our issue here in whole, which we've made some mistakes, whether it be the steering committee, full commission as a whole, the county mayor. We haven't been looking for a county attorney. We should have started this process at least the latest by January to get this thing in place. Budgetary proceedings have already been going on. That's been kind of overlooked or whatever, and then this new county attorney number has been put in place here. There's been some mistakes made here and some problems, and we're at the bottom of the hour here. I appreciate Mr. Cope and his office. They've done a fine job. That's not been the issue from day one with me. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm speaking for myself. You've done a fine job for the county ever since I've been here, since August of '90, and I appreciate your services. This is the point of whether we're going to have an in-house attorney, which could be Jim Cope if he applied and wanted the job. But that's what we've said as a whole on county commission that we wanted to do. Now we're at the bottom of the thing where it's at the end of budget year. We can't hire somebody this quickly and get them in. We've got to do the right process, so we got to back up. I'd like to see an extension of maybe 6 months or something. Start January 1 with a new county attorney, in-house attorney, if you want to say. But, you know, that's just been thrown out there. That's where we are. Amendment or not, I'd like to see our motion back on the floor. What that wanted to do and why I wouldn't withdraw my motion, original motion, is because if this one passes, then I definitely want us to still be looking at 2 years down the road of us starting an in-house county attorney's office, period. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner McAdoo wishes to speak.
Well, I appreciate the brief history that Commissioner Sandlin gave us on the last several years, but my interest right now is what came out of steering committee, what motion. So I guess I need to address it. Was the county attorney there at the steering committee meeting? I would like him to address what is the actual motion that came out of steering. That's all I'm interested in right now. That's what's on the floor. I cannot vote on anything else, past history or whatever, so on and so forth. But I want to know what came out of steering committee. What motion should I be looking at tonight?
Commissioner Gooch wishes to speak first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have the minutes here, and if you will indulge me, it won't take long for me to read the actual motion. The original motion was Commissioner Sandlin moved, second by the most honorable Commissioner Gooch, to approve and proceed with the county mayor's recommendation as to establish an in-house county attorney's office. That motion passed. And then there was an amendment to that motion by Commissioner Stevens to amend the original motion to extend the contract with Cope's Law Firm for 2 years based on the $259,000 in Commissioner Baum's resolution. This motion passed by roll call vote. So we have a motion to do the in-house and an amended motion for a 2-year extension. Third, Commissioner Stevens moved to amend the original motion to remove the original motion and make the 2-year contract under Commissioner Baum's resolution. This motion failed for a lack of second. So what the motion should say is that we will proceed with a in-house county attorney and extend the contract for 2 years. Now, in my opinion, 2 years is probably, if we're going to proceed with investigating an in-house county attorney, then 2 years may be too long. Now, I think in the contract that any party can remove themselves from the contract with a 180-day notice. Am I correct with that? I'm not correct with that. So if there's a 2-year contract, it's 2 years.
That's correct. It's a 2-year contract.
Okay. So again, the motion as what's in the amendment, the minutes should say that we are moving forward with an in-house attorney, but with a 2-year extension. So in my opinion, if we're going to extend the continue looking, that 2 years is probably too long to be in an agreement, and maybe 6 months or a year may be more appropriate. Does that help, Commissioner McAdoo?
Well, not necessarily, because now you're coming up here with your opinion, telling me that 2 years may be too long, and I'm now wondering why wasn't this discussed in the steering committee meeting and put in this motion?
Well, I think I may have tried to answer your question by giving you what the motion came out of steering was, which was to proceed with an in-house attorney. That motion passed, and the amendment passed that we would extend the contract for 2 years.
Okay, no 6 months, all this your opinion?
2 years.
2 years.
Yes. But there was a motion or amendment to avoid the original motion, which failed for a lack of a second.
Okay, so it's still a 2-year contract that we're voting on tonight.
It says that in the resolution before us, but it says nothing about the motion to proceed with an in-house attorney. And that's where all the confusion is. The motion that was read from the floor is half of the motion that came out of steering.
You're saying that this motion that was presented tonight is wrong?
Is not the motion that came out of steering. That's correct.
County attorney? Well, maybe they discussing it now. Yeah, but I want to hear from that county attorney right there, because he's telling me that this is not the motion, and the chairman of the steering committee presented the motion.
Okay, just one moment here. It appears that we can vote on this amendment and still give you ample opportunity to go back and either vote up or down the original motion that you don't necessarily agree with, or amend that motion. So we sort of need to get past that if we possibly can. Commissioner Phillips.
That will be fine. What I would like to do is to vote on that amendment. If you'll give me the opportunity to recognize me to make an amendment to the original motion.
Well, you're the person up speaking, and if you'll indulge us, and we'll go ahead and take care of this amendment.
I have a question. Now, I don't mean any disrespect for Commissioner Gooch, but he just said the original motion passed, and then it was amended. That doesn't even make sense. I'm not trying. I know you're reading that, but if you pass the motion is passed. It's gone. You can't amend the motion that's not on the floor. I was in the meeting. The motion was made. Commissioner Stevens got up immediately and offered an amendment. So I don't think the motion passed, because if it passed, it would have been gone. You can't amend the motion that's already gone.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. What I was referring to, that the original motion did pass as amended.
Well, I've got a question about that. I had a feeling that night that the amendment might have been out of order, but it was accepted because the amendment totally changed the motion.
No, it did. No, sir. No, sir.
Well, the amendment did. In my opinion, it was at least the attempt. And it looks to me like, and I'm not trying to argue with you. I got a question for Commissioner Cope, but I was just saying that you said the motion passed and then it was amended, but the motion was amended before it ever passed, because you can't amend something that's already passed.
I may have misspoke, but the original motion,
but it was
with
amended.
the amendment passed. The amendment,
that was an amendment.
as in the minutes, did not change the motion.
My question for Mr. Cope is, can an amendment completely change a motion? I always was under the impression amendments are meant to, bend one a little bit one way or another, but this amendment changed it completely. It went in a total opposite direction. Is that possible?
Yes, that is possible under Robert's rules, as long as it's germane to the same subject. You cannot substitute a word in an amendment to simply say no to make a positive a negative. That is not permitted. But you are permitted to amend a motion that substantively changes the original motion, as long as it's germane. It cannot completely reverse it, but it can change it as to terms and conditions and so forth. So that is permitted under Robert's rules.
Okay.
Said it cannot completely reverse it, so I'm back to being fuzzy again there. Because first you said it could change it, then you said it can't completely reverse it because his amendment reversed the motion, in my opinion, completely. Can it do that?
I thought that it could that night. I think Commissioner Stevens is correct. That's my opinion. There's an honest disagreement of that. That's entirely up to the commission. Make a suggestion here, if I might, Mayor, with your consent. I think you can, of course, continue to discuss all night what these minutes mean. And I don't know that you're going to be any closer to resolving what they mean at the end of the day than you are right now, other than debating it. I think it's a fair issue to debate. But it seems like what Commissioner Phillips said may be in order. If you want to consider this First Amendment about the criteria for the county attorney, whoever that might be, you dispose of that amendment, then you're back to the original motion made by Commissioner Stevens as second. If you want to change that, add to it, subtract from it, any motion then is subject to amendment. Commissioner Phillips can make his or anyone else, and then you can debate that amendment, and you're back on track, and you will not spend an inordinate amount of time debating what took place in steering at this point. That's just a suggestion. It's up to you.
Okay, without objection, that's what we're going to do. The amendment, which I was reading, I think I did read all the amendment that Mr. Stevens made a while ago. So if we can dispose of that, then we're going to recognize Commissioner Phillips. All right, we're voting on the amendment as proposed by Mr. Stevens with respect to the county attorney reporting and the county attorney becoming incapacitated, et cetera. Any questions on that? It's important as this is, let's do a roll call vote, electronic vote. Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
Motion passes.
21 according to my screen. All right, Commissioner Phillips.
That was the amendment that passed, correct? I make a motion to approve and proceed with the county mayor's recommendation to establish an in-house county attorney's office and to extend the contract of James C. Cope, the law firm of James C. Cope, for legal services for a period of 1 year, and that the Human Resources Department be directed to take appropriate action to assist the Board of Commissioners in the selection and appointment of an in-house attorney whose appointment would begin on April 1st, 2013, and whose term as in-house attorney would begin July 1st, 2013.
Point of order. You can't make a motion on top of a motion.
Well, do you want to make an amendment to the motion on the floor? You said you want to make a motion. To amend. Now, do we have a second? Commissioner Farley. Now discussion. Let's see, just a moment until Mr. Robertson is able to get that in the system. Do you have that written out in a form that he could put in the system, or kind of sort of? Would you, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, while they doing that, I guess that's what they're doing. Can I ask our county attorney a question?
Well, you can, but I don't want us to get off track here now. We got to sort of stay with, we have an amendment and we need to discuss that amendment. Is this something that's going to be relative to the amendment, or is it a completely independent?
Right in the middle of it.
We're going to recognize you first.
Okay.
But I'd like to let everyone understand it. Maybe what he said, I mean, it was more than maybe they comprehended. Robertson has that in a form that I can read it even with these glasses on now. He's expanded the size of this print, but motion, an amendment was made by Mr. Phillips to amend the motion on the floor. I don't think you have that in there quite, Mr. Robinson, which would approve and proceed with the mayor's recommendation as to establishing an in-house county attorney's office and to extend the contract with Jim Cope and the law firm of Cope, Hudson, Reed and McCrary, PLLC, for legal services for a period of 1 year, and that the Human Resources Department be directed to take appropriate action to assist the Board of Commissioners in the selection and appointment of an in-house attorney whose employment would begin on April 1, 2013, I believe, and whose term as in-house attorney would begin July the 1st, 2013. Is that a fair rendition of what you suggested there? And Mr. Farley, that was your second. Now, Mr. Sandlin, you're recognized.
Commissioner Gooch said something here a while ago about 180 days. Mr. Cope, in our original 2-year extension 2 years ago, wasn't that part of that, the 180 days in or out? We notify you, you notify us, you're tired of us, or you're in or we're out, or vice versa?
Answer that. That 180 days only applies to the second piece of that legal services agreement, which were for other services, litigation, etc. At the end of the 4-year period, 180 days prior to that 4-year period, which 2 years have already expired, then you can give 180 days notice to discontinue that piece of the agreement. Then, if you don't do that, that agreement automatically renews for another 4 years for those extra additional services, litigation, etc. And then at the end of that 4-year period, prior to that, if you so chose 180 days previous to the end of that period, you could cancel the agreement. It does nothing to affect the term of the general services provided, routine services. It only applies to those extra services outside of that.
I see. Mr. Cope, the other night at steering, we were toying with this time frame, and you were going to have to sit down with your partners about time frame. I'm trying to think, did we ask him exactly some different, that you were going to your partnership and was talking, but that ain't what come out, so you didn't have to do that, I guess. Now we got on the floor a year, so basically you're going to have to go back to your partnership there, or your...
That's correct. Nobody's proposed anything to me except Commissioner Baum for a 2-year extension. He asked and requested, as did a number of commissioners, that we make a proposal to extend for 2 years. That's what we've done. I've heard everything under the sun proposed other than that, but I have seen nothing past her that's come forward saying, or anyone sat down with me and say, on what other basis would you do anything? So we've had no further discussions. The only thing we've talked about is we did commit to the county that if you wanted to continue, we'd be glad to continue it on a 2-year basis, as Commissioner Baum.
But I'm talking about now we have on the floor a year, and if that passes, are you going to have to go back to your business partner, so to speak, and see if they want to do another year?
Sure, absolutely.
Because it's not a done deal. Once we say, if it's approved here by 11 votes, then it's not a for sure if you're going to do it or not.
I don't have the authority to say if I'm going to do it. I'm in a partnership with 7 other people, and you're correct. I have no idea what we would do in response to that.
Mr. Schaefer.
The amendment we have on the floor right now, the way I understand things is that if this amendment should pass, then we're locked in. That's it. You can only what? An amendment to an amendment cannot be amendable, is what I'm saying. You can't get a third amendment on it. And that
only got one now, so why?
We only have one now on the floor.
Didn't we just approve the one from Mr. Stevens? Okay, that's part of the original motion. You
can add 100 amendments, Mr. Cope says. We're back to the original motion with one amendment on it right now. We have to deal with this one. Who else? Wait just a minute, Commissioner Stanley. There may be someone else that wishes to speak that I've overlooked. There not being any, you can
Well, that
speak.
was the situation we were talking about in steering. That was our original motion. That's why I didn't decline that. That's why I didn't withdraw my original motion.
I think it's been said that if it's unclear what took place at steering, this amendment, if this is what you choose to clarify, it would clarify that. Commissioner McAdoo, oh, excuse me, Mr. McAdoo raised his hand, but he...
Under this amendment, we're saying that the HR department and some others is going to get together and draw up qualifications to hire an in-house attorney. And this will be done within a year period of time, and that we will dissolve the our relationship with Jim Cope and his partners. Am I correct on that?
That's more or less, it's not up here now, but it says the appropriate action will be taken by the HR department to give the Board of Commissioners enough information to determine a selection and appointment. The details are not there, but it says that it'll be their responsibility to report to this body a plan, and you would approve the plan.
Telling me that our HR department have enough expertise to write the qualifications to hire an in-house attorney. Is that correct?
They would provide the model. It would still be up to the Board of Commissioners to agree as to whether the information they provided, the plan they had provided, was acceptable.
I guess what I'm asking, you know, we're setting a time frame. Here we go again, setting a time frame of 1 year. So I'm asking that during that year period of time, will we be able to accomplish what we're saying tonight in this amendment? That's the only thing I'm trying to get at.
I think that would be certainly doable by any competent HR department. Commissioner Jordan.
Well, I'm back to being confused again. Today's the 14th, and the current contract with Attorney Cope expires in 16 days. He offered a 2-year extension at a lower rate than what we're paid the last 2 or 3 years. That was a gesture on their part because they want to keep our business. You know, if we're going to sit there and say, no, we're not going to give you but a year and then you're gone, I can tell you what's going to happen in 16 days. You know, this offer's for 2 years. We've got an offer, and it'll take at least a year. I like a year, but we don't have a year on the table. A year's not offered right now. We're 16 days not having an attorney. We don't need to be in that position. So I think we can proceed on. It'll take, we got to figure out where we're going to put them, how many people we're going to need. You know, we got several things to figure out, and it's not going to be done in 16 days or maybe even 16 months. But this 1 year thing is fixing to blow up in our faces. You know, there's no offer to be an attorney for a year. There's an offer to be an attorney for 16 days or 2 years. Those are 2 offers out there. 1 year's not on the table. So just be very careful what we vote for here because we could be without an attorney in 16 days.
Question, Commissioner Allen.
I have just one fresh thought I would like to add to this. I wasn't able to be at the meeting the other night, but I did watch all but probably about the first 30 minutes of it. And Mayor, when you were initially speaking and you talked about all the things that you would have this in-house attorney do, you know, some of the responsibilities that you felt like you could pass off to them or share with them, it really sounded to me like a lot of those positions or a lot of those roles were better suited to perhaps a deputy mayor. It was coordination among department heads. It was political, legislative updates, you know, coordinating with the delegation in Nashville, that sort of thing. And I don't object to that at all. I think that's a terrific idea, and I think that's a much more containable expense than it would be to try to hire an in-house attorney. You know, if we think we're going to do it with the staff we've prescribed, I don't think we're going to do it well. So I think they're either going to be underfunded, understaffed, and we're going to suffer as a county as a result. So, and again, I'm not saying that maybe that's not something we grow into at some point, but you know, I think we've got terrific service here from, you know, Mr. Cope's law firm. I think it's pretty much, the best expertise that we have, in town that's being offered to us, everything from the history to the diversity of his partners. I'd really like for us to not lock ourselves into saying absolutely yes, we're going to do in-house attorney, but maybe even explore the idea of what a deputy mayor role would look like, and if that couldn't be a better, long-term solution for us. So anyway, just something food for thought before we vote on this.
Was it Commissioner Baum?
Part of this decision, I think, still rests with the cost and the numbers. I know we've talked about this some in the steering committee meeting, but I think I have some new information that's probably worth taking just a minute or two to highlight. I'm going to direct my comments towards Ms. Allen's analysis, but I think the same things that I'm getting ready to say about Ms. Allen's analysis actually could be said or are true of the analysis the Finance Department gave us in the steering committee meeting. First, I do want to thank Ms. Allen for her analysis and sharing it with us. In accounting, you can't double count. An example of double counting would be taking an expense and charging it twice, or taking revenue and adding it twice. A third version of double counting would be where you take an amount of money and you add it to revenue and you simultaneously subtract it from cost. That's what's going on in these other analyses that we've been presented. I'll just show you the one that Ms. Allen presented because I think you've all got a copy of it. If you look in the last two columns, Mrs. Allen is using an estimate for delinquent taxes. Her estimate is $160,000. She's taking that amount and adding it to the cost of my proposal, and she's simultaneously taking that amount and she's subtracting it from the cost of the mayor's in-house proposal for an in-house attorney. So it's $160,000, and it's in there twice. The impact of this, when you multiply it by 2, is an impact of $320,000. This makes the difference between my proposal and the proposal for the in-house attorney artificially large. On top of that, the number being used for delinquent taxes is the largest number for delinquent taxes on record. It's a relatively high number. When you take this relatively high number and insert it twice, it actually reverses the two proposals. So instead of my proposal to recontract with the Copes appearing to cost less, it actually makes the proposal for the in-house attorney suddenly cost less. If instead we could redo this, let's use a number from normal economic times. I'm going to go back to 2007 when delinquent tax fees were $64,620. Perhaps you can find it on that sheet from 2007, 2008 when the delinquent tax fees were $64,620. That's before the recession, which is what I would predict over the long run would be more characteristic than delinquent taxes we've just collected in a recession. If you take that figure, then you subtract the $23,000 rebate that the Copes pay the county. They pay for 75% of the salary of this attorney. Then what you're left with is, here's the math, it's about $64,000 minus $23,000. You're left with an effect from delinquent tax fees of about $40,000. That's why these analyses appear to be so different. The effect of delinquent taxes in normal economic times is probably going to be around $40,000. In Ms. Allen's analysis, it has an effect of $320,000. And the same thing with this analysis from the steering committee on Monday night. So the bottom line cost for my proposal to recontract with the Copes is $80,000 less, roughly, than the in-house attorney. If you want to have the in-house attorney also collect delinquent taxes, then you could add in the $40,000 figure, but just add it in once, don't double count. The cost of recontracting with the Copes is less than the cost of the in-house attorney. And in that process, you don't even have to worry about whether the in-house attorney has the time or the expertise to collect delinquent taxes. The Copes are already taking care of this, and this is something that's done by Roger Hudson. The reason why I proposed my resolution in the first place was I think it's a good deal. It allows us to continue benefiting from the experience of the Cope attorneys, their expertise in lots of different areas of law, their almost 30 years of institutional experience with Rutherford County. I think my proposal to recontract with the Copes costs less than an in-house attorney, at least when you use a reasonable estimate for delinquent tax fees and when you just count it once. I think it's not debated that my proposal with the Copes costs less than the Copes have cost the last several years, so we're getting a bargain versus prior Cope budgets. And it allows us to control costs because we know exactly what general legal services will cost for the next 2 years. It's a flat fee. With an in-house legal department, you don't know whether you're going to need additional assistance, an additional attorney to collect delinquent taxes. It's a cost that ends up being much more uncertain. So I think I probably feel like people are tired of going over the numbers, but I felt like I had some new information. Now, I want to say one more thing, and then I'll sit down. I did not have the full budget prepared for you in the steering committee meeting that shows how all of the $259,000 would be spent. That's in front of you now. It's probably in your stack of papers. Perhaps you can locate it. The total cost for the in-house attorney is $338,000. That's in the far right column. That's the mayor's recommendation. The cost to recontract with the Copes with my recommendation is $259,000. If you look on those different rows, I have tried, where possible, to make the costs exactly the same. I'll just give you a few examples. For travel, both budgets allocate $1,100. For postal charges, both budgets allocate $1,300. There are a few differences that cannot be helped. Salaries in my budget are lower, and therefore benefits, the corresponding employment benefits, are lower as well. It's because those benefits are calculated based on a formula. It's based on salaries. So if salaries are lower, the benefits will be lower. Commissioner Phillips asked an excellent question in the steering committee meeting, and that is, where are the secretaries in these budgets? The mayor's budget for an in-house attorney comes with 2 secretaries. They, in his budget, are in line 161. That's only about the 3rd row on the chart, but it's account number 161. And the dollar amount, if you're trying to follow along, is $67,840. In my budget, there are 2 secretaries as well, but they're in 2 different spots. One of the secretaries is in line 161. That's Amanda Larkins. She's in that line because she's a salaried county employee with associated benefits. The other individual is Becky Shelton's replacement, and she is in the line that has the account number 399. She is employed by the Copes. The county pays the Cope attorneys, the Cope firm, $38,375. The county pays that amount for her, but then the Copes go on to pay her benefits. Because of that, she is not in line 161. But I did want to clarify that 2 secretaries are in my proposed budget, and 2 secretaries are in the mayor's proposed budget. And again, the goal of that is so that the 2 budgets can be as comparable as possible so that you can compare the bottom line dollars. Maybe I should add, so my conclusion is I'm not going to vote for Commissioner Phillips' amendment. I'm going to vote to recontract with the Copes for 2 years without authorizing the county mayor to hire an in-house attorney.
Nolan, do you have any response?
Is this on? Okay. To the point of double counting. compare the expenditures of what we've got in the budget. The mayor's recommendation was $338,560 compared to the bond proposal of $259,000. In the mayor's recommendation, there is an assumption that the in-house would handle the delinquent tax collections. Whether you use 160, 100, or an average, there is an additional reason why that these numbers are higher in the last 2 years. But even if you average them, take the number, whatever, in the mayor's proposal, it would be revenue to the county, not an offset of expenditures, but the demonstration in Ms. Allen's proposal and the presentation of what I was to present to you is really what is the net effect to the county of $338,560 in expenditures, and then there is revenue. Now, I will tell you, and the proposal for 12-13, there's not this revenue estimated to come in because there was too much unknown of what would happen. So you know me well long enough now. I'm very conservative, so that revenue number would not be in there. It's not in there. Now, what the other demonstrations say is, okay, well, how much would the Cope firm receive from the county? In the bond proposal, $259,000, with an assumption that the Cope firm would continue to be the delinquent tax attorney, so they would get whatever the delinquent tax for the tax attorney would go. It's a viewpoint of how much net is the county paying, and then how much is the Cope firm receiving. That was the comparison in Ms. Allen's and in my proposal. The other item, and I'll just make a point of this, on the delinquent tax fees to this is the amount that Chancery pays. There was a change in staff level, in the staffing of one person, in their theory of how to get the work done, and another one. So I would say that some of this difference is that the employee that's in there now is cranking out more work.
Okay. Now, we have an amendment on the floor here that we're discussing. Mr. Turner.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I jumped up late there. I just wanted to add really quick because it's important to me. I'm planning on voting against this simply for what Commissioner Jordan had stated earlier. Well, two things, actually. One, I support where we are now with this contract with the Cope Law Firm, but going back to what Commissioner Jordan said, if we pass this and then Mr. Cope comes back and say they don't want to do it, we're stuck. And I don't want to be in that spot given recent developments. And so I'm planning on voting against this and then voting what I thought was something that I was for at the steering committee. And so I just want to reiterate that fact again, that if this passes, and again, I'm not a fear monger, so forgive me if that's the way it's coming across, and with all due respect to Mr. Phillips, I'm going to vote against this. They hold the cards if we do that. And their understanding was that we were going to proceed in good faith with the 2-year agreement. Now, that doesn't mean we have to do that, but that's the way that I was under the assumption, and that's the way that I'm planning on voting. So I just want to remind the commission that if this passes, as Mr. Sandlin just said, Mr. Cope and his firm hold the cards now about how they want to handle that agreement moving forward, and that's going to put us in a heck of a pickle if they make the decision, which they have every right to do, to decide not to go along in that business agreement. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The big issue here is, do we want to keep Jim Cope's office, or do we want to go to an in-house law office? This amendment is not going to work, I don't think. Has anybody in here ever worked in a law office before? I'm just telling you now that one person can't do this job. I'm in the legal system every day. I see it. I know how attorneys work. I know how law offices work. One person cannot do this job and do a high-quality job. and then you add in all the routine services plus collecting the delinquent taxes, I mean, you're going to have a second attorney, maybe a third one. And I had a question the other night at steering that nobody could answer, or I still haven't got an answer to, and what are we going to do when this attorney is out of town? What's our fallback plan going to be? I think that's very important. One of the things that I keep hearing is we want to have an attorney that's available and on the phone. If we have our own in-house attorney, just one of them, we're not going to have that person there all the time because they're going to have vacation. I urge you to vote against this amendment. I, too, like Commissioner Baum, am going to support extending the contract with Jim Cope's office for 2 years and no discussion whatsoever of an in-house law office. I think it's a big mistake. I want to warn you all right now that law office with one attorney is going to grow quickly because one person will not be able to do all this work for us. Not only does that person have to do the work that's current, they have to keep up with all the different areas of law and all the developments, because if they don't, they'll be guilty of malpractice. And you've got bankruptcy and real estate law and contract law, workers' compensation, employment law, and all the state laws and federal laws and regulations. It's all I can do to keep up with the 3 areas that I practice. I couldn't imagine trying to keep up with all these different areas of law. So this concept of going with just one attorney, it's not going to work. I don't know how much clearer that we can make this. But I hope that you'll vote against this amendment and that we'll support the extension of the contract with Mr. Cope's office for 2 years. And one more thing, like Commissioner Jordan alluded to, the price, if we go to a 1-year contract, will probably not be $259,000. In the private sector, you have a long-term contract, you get a better rate. If we do a six-month contract or a 1-year contract, they're going to come back with a higher rate. I guarantee that.
Commissioner Farley had risen, then we'll get that question. I'm sorry, he was trying to.
Well, that's what I stood up for. I'm calling for the question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, call for the question. Second on that? All in favor of call for the question, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? We've had a call for the question, and we're voting on the amendment. And do I need to read the amendment again, or do you understand it? Good always to read it again. The amendment is to approve and proceed with the mayor's recommendation as to establishing an in-house county attorney's office and to extend the contract with Jim Cope and law firm of Cope, Hudson, Reed, and McCrary, PLLC, for legal services for a period of 1 year, and that the Human Resources Department be directed to take appropriate action to assist Board of Commissioners in the selection and appointment of an in-house attorney whose employment would begin on April 1, 2013, and whose term as in-house attorney would begin July the 1st, 2013. That's the amendment that's on the floor, and you're now ready to vote. Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
8 yes, 13 no, motion fails.
Commissioner Coggin, and then both of y'all got up about the same time. Commissioner P.
I'd like to make an amendment, the exact same verbiage that Commissioner Phillips had, substituting 2-year term instead of 1 year.
Second there, Commissioner Jordan. All right, any discussion on that? Commissioner Jordan is up first. Commissioner Schaefer.
We have to make this decision right now. I mean, we've got 2 years to implement this. You'll start changing the budget next year's process. I mean, I voted for the option 2 years ago. In my opinion, Mr. Sandlin and I disagree. It was an option. We got the Private Act changed. We put another tool in the tool chest, another option at our disposal. And I voted 2 years ago to have this option at this point in time. While we're trying to make decisions 2 years out, I don't understand. We're going to be the same place tomorrow, whether we vote whichever way on this amendment, and we can change it next month. You know, so I think we just extend this contract, and then we work it out and do it appropriately. But we're just arguing over, we're splitting hairs here. We can bounce this back and forth every month for the next 2 years if we want to. But I would hope we could just extend the contract and move forward and do it slowly and correctly over the next 2 years.
Mr. Schaefer.
Well, then if I understand the motion that's on the floor now, we still are locked into deciding something by April of this next year? Or does...
Well, we probably need a
that
point
was
of
Mr.
clarification.
Phillips' amendment.
We'd roll that for a whole year. You'd roll it for another year. So the April 1st, 2013 would be April 1st, 2014, and July the 1st would be 2014. You'd roll it to the second year. Is that correct, Mr.? And is that two-year contract with the HR department coming forward to you people to put something in place in 2014?
Well, I'd like to offer an amendment to that then and change, if we can do that, since we got a second.
We got to take care of this amendment.
This is a motion, wasn't it?
He's amended the motion. And the second, Commissioner Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One thing that Commissioner Phillips' motion did was something that I really wanted to discuss the other night, but probably wisely was advised against it, and that was a transition period. And Mr. Phillips' motion for 1 year did mention April of next year. And Commissioner, I think everybody's right. Commissioner Jordan is also correct. We can kick this around every month if we want to, but we're going to know very soon, because in about 8 or 9 months, we're going to have to put money in the budget to pay for this person that's going to, whether it's 3 months as Commissioner Phillips has suggested, or 4, or whatever it is, and for that office to become a reality, we're going to have to put money in the budget next year for that to happen the following spring. So we're going to know right away. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities for us to discuss this. And I just thought I would point out the timeline there, and we all know that we messed up here, and we should have been doing this in February, and I think we pretty much know that. But at any rate, I think that's a pretty good timeline to be aware of, and we're going to have plenty of time to discuss it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have the amendment. Do you understand the amendment? Commissioner Allen.
I just want to reinforce something that Commissioner Jordan said, and that is, I don't ever like to have my hands tied. I like to, be able to take new information, react to it, that sort of thing. And I know a previous commission voted to do this, but, this is the commission you have today. And I think this commission should really take some time and flesh out what's the role going to be. I would love for the HR department, for Jim Cope, for the mayor, to sit down and really write down, go ahead and take a stab at what a job description is going to look like. And then once you have that job description, you know what the roles and responsibilities are, see if that fits an in-house attorney, or see if it doesn't fit possibly a deputy mayor. I mean, the town of Smyrna has a city manager, Murfreesboro has a city manager. I mean, there are other government bodies that have kind of a second in command. And, I don't blame the mayor. I would want help too. And I think he wants it. I think he deserves it. I just don't know if this is the right suit. I don't know if this is what it needs to look like. And so it won't be a wasted effort, because once you do that, once you get together and have that conversation, if it looks and feels and sounds like it ought to be an in-house attorney, then we can move forward with that. But if it looks and sounds and feels like it needs to be a second in command, then that's what we should do. So I think we should not vote for this at this point, because I don't know what it is exactly that we need. So I'm encouraging you to vote against it.
Other discussion? Commissioner Baum.
I like the way this motion is to extend the contract with the Cope attorneys for 2 years. One thing I'm not ready to agree to myself at this time is an in-house attorney. I'm not sure why these two issues have to be fused together at this time. It seems like we ought to be able to vote on whether to extend the Cope contract for 2 years. I sense that there's some support for that. And then discuss or vote on an in-house attorney separately. I think Commissioner Jordan's correct. That doesn't even necessarily have to be done tonight. But if it had to be done tonight, I don't know why we don't decouple these two issues. Otherwise, you're going to have some commissioners like me who want to vote for part of the amendment but not the other part. I think if we actually vote against the motion that will be voted on next, I think if we vote against it, and then simply vote separately on extending the Cope contract for 2 years, this will have a better chance of gauging the true wishes of the commissioners.
Are you ready to vote? Call for the question. No objection to the call for the question. We're going to vote. Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
9 yes, 12 no. Amendment fails.
That amendment failed. We have a motion on the floor. Commissioner Coggin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to take a second. I've been trying to do this for about 30 minutes now. I just want to sincerely apologize to all the commissioners and especially to the steering committee members. I know the night of our steering committee meeting there was quite a bit of confusion as to the motion and amendments, and I can't change that. All I can do is apologize for that. And I just wanted to state that while I did not draft this resolution, I do find it to be my interpretation of the events of that night. So, again, I apologize for that confusion, which has led us to a lot of this discussion tonight. So anyway, I just wanted to state that and make my apologies. However, I do feel that this does reflect the amendments after I looked at the minutes and kind of reviewed some of those things. So I do feel that this does reflect the actions that the committee took.
Safer.
Okay, now I can make a motion? Since we don't have one, do we?
You can make a motion to amend the motion that's on the floor.
Oh, the original. Oh, I thought we defeated that.
Have a motion on the floor. It's exactly the resolution that you have before you that was prepared before the meeting. That's what, as amended, we've already approved the amendment, the first amendment. This resolution right here says, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners to extend the contract with James C. Cope and the law firm of Cope, Hudson, Reed, McCrary for legal services for a period of 2 years. Based on Commissioner Charlie Baum's resolution, a copy of said resolution being attached herein is Exhibit 1 with an appropriate amendment to the existing legal services agreement to be executed and entered into. So that's the resolution, that's a motion, and it attaches to it the original resolution that was presented last commission meeting. Plus, we've already approved the amendment, so we're voting on this motion, which has been amended and approved. Voting on the original motion. Any other discussion as amended? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
16 yes, 5 no. Motion passes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is an executive session with the county attorney regarding...
Mayor Burgess,
I'm sorry, Commissioner Phillips?
I just want to thank the commission for at least listening to me. This process started years ago, and the process was instituted to cut down on the workload that the administrative head of our government has undertaken the last few years. Several of you have mentioned workloads. I couldn't keep up with it. He can't keep up with it. This guy's working 80-plus hours a week, you guys. And that's what this was intended to do, was to cut down on some of the workload that the administrative head of our government has been putting in. Plus, when all the studies were done, weeks and months, it was going to save money to do it. I'm not weak-minded enough to know that that department wouldn't grow. Our HR department grows. Every department is growing as our county is growing. I'm not silly enough to think that it wouldn't, but it at least was a starting point. But thank you for at least hearing me out tonight and allowing me the opportunity to tell you how I feel. And the decision that you made is not the wrong decision, okay? And I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Farley.
I'd also echo what Commissioner Phillips also said, and I want to, what you had just talked about, Commissioner Allen, about the deputy mayor type, that was actually talked about 2 or 3, 4 years ago. I'd like to see, as the chairman of our steering committee, that be put on the next steering committee's agenda for some discussion to that matter, because Commissioner Phillips is right. The mayor's office is not like it was years ago. There's day-to-day operations going around here that this, not just this mayor, any mayor, whoever's in that office, can't hardly keep up because of the workload. But so I think the steering committee needs to address this, and I'd like to see it on the next agenda.
Other discussion before we continue the agenda as outlined here? Okay, we're going to go into an executive session with the county attorney regarding Fisher et al. Versus Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission et al. And others and the Murfreesboro Post. And I will remind all of the people that are in this arena, including all of our staff members here, they will have to exit this room, and this will only be a discussion, an exchange of discussion between our county attorney and our Board of Commissioners. It will not be a point of deliberation. It'll only be an exchange of information, and all of you that are out there in the audience, we're going to go off the air, and you can excuse yourselves and be outside this room. You cannot be within hearing distance of the room, and we will reconvene and give anyone an opportunity to come back after we receive the report. So with that being said, we're going to take about a 5 to 10 minute recess until we come back into the executive session. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're back in session, and we've just been in executive session with our county attorney, and now we'll have a report from our county attorney on the executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the benefit of the public, we had a session attorney-client meeting to discuss the county's litigation involving the lawsuit filed by Kevin Fisher and others against the County Planning Commission, the County Commission, and others, including the Murfreesboro Post. It's in a case in Chancery Court of Rutherford County. Style of the case is number 10 CV 1443. I have shared information regarding that lawsuit and the decision of the court with the county commissioners. I have entertained questions that they have relating to the lawsuit and the developments regarding the ICM, and tried to answer as thoroughly as I could the questions that were raised. There have been no deliberations by the commission toward anything. I cautioned them in advance that this was an attorney-client meeting strictly to answer questions and for me to provide them information, but they were not to deliberate or engage in any discussions regarding these matters until we were in public session. As many of you know, the court in this case issued a decision around the 1st of June holding that the decision of the Regional Planning Commission was void ab initio in granting a site approval to the ICM because the county's notice, according to the court, was inadequate and ineffective under Tennessee law. The decision of the court becomes final unless appealed within 30 days. The Regional Planning Commission, as you all should know from having followed this, voted some several days ago to appeal the matter. The matter is now before this body to do what it chooses to do, if anything, regarding any further legal proceedings. And as I shared with you, some of the possibilities include taking no action, secondly, voting not to appeal, or thirdly, voting to appeal. It's entirely up to this deliberative body as to what you do going forward. The floor will be open for questions, conducted, of course, by the chairman, and for any deliberations, for any motions, anything you would like to do. It's now open for your consideration and deliberations. Be happy to, again, to answer any questions you may have, to clarify anything that I shared with you during the executive session, or any other information I can provide.
Questions or comments or discussion or a motion from anyone on the commission? Commissioner Allen.
Well, as a member of Planning Commission, I just would like to echo our sentiments from the other night, which were, we treated this site plan like we do every other site plan that comes before us. We, when we have the rules, we follow them. We don't deviate. We know exactly what our obligations are to this county. We know what our limited scope of authority is, and we feel like we acted within that. And so, because we've done these notices the same way consistently, we did not want to treat this church, this place of worship, any differently than we would have any other one. As I said the other night, I'm a Christian. I pray to God. I believe Jesus Christ is my Savior. I wish everybody felt that way. The reality is that they don't. And so I am very cautious that we would ever want to try to put restrictions on someone else's freedom to worship just for the unintended consequences, the blowback that could mean back on Christians by either agnostics or atheists or someone else who wants to limit how we worship. So based on that, I am going to make a motion that this body also endorses the decision to appeal this, because I don't feel like we did anything wrong, and I don't feel like we really have any other course of action but to continue the appeal.
We have a second. Second, Commissioner Jordan. Further discussion, Commissioner Schaefer.
Well, I do not see what the county commission did to be a party to this lawsuit. I mean, I have nothing to do or say about a site plan for a religious institution, I kind of feel like I didn't do anything wrong, and I kind of feel like it's the right thing to do then is to appeal, because for the simple reason, if you don't do something wrong and then somebody, even if it's a judge, makes a ruling and it's very vague and he doesn't tell you how to correct it, it just seems to me like they're trying to get you more and more. So I think we need, if this is good for Rutherford County with the ruling here, then it goes up to the next level. We'll find out if it's good for the whole state.
Commissioner Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Mr. Cope, could you give us an estimated possible cost of an appeal? And if the Planning Commission, as you mentioned, has already voted to appeal, would the cost be different if we also voted to appeal?
The answer to your first question on potential costs for the appellate process, my estimate would be $15,000 to $25,000 in additional legal fees to handle it through the Court of Appeals. As to whether this would be any additional cost to the county if the county commission appeals in addition to the Planning Commission, the answer is no. The cost will be the same whether you elect to appeal or not. The Planning Commission has elected to appeal, so there is not any additional cost by virtue of you appealing. The work product will be the same. The work effort would be the same. There's no duplication. There's no double counting, as it were, or otherwise. It's just whatever the cost is, it's the same for the entire process.
Other comments? Commissioner Phillips.
I'm no legal mind, but reading through this lengthy decision, I understood Judge Corlew to say, or Chancellor Corlew to say that that actually the Planning Commission did nothing wrong. It was only the notice that was in question. So I take that to mean that the Planning Commission did the right thing in approving a site plan. So the only thing that the decision was that maybe there wasn't sufficient notice. And from that perspective, if the Planning Commission did nothing wrong, why would we want to appeal it? Well, to me, it's like, let's just say that I'm an individual and I was charged with a crime and went through that process, and I was, in essence, found guilty, and I knew that I wasn't guilty. would I want to appeal that? And the answer is absolutely positively yes. So I feel like if the Planning Commission really did nothing wrong, then why not appeal that decision? And that's going to be my decision tonight, is to vote yes on this appeal.
Jordan.
I'm just going to agree with what Commissioner Phillips said. I mean, we treated this exactly like we did the Baptist church right next door. And we approved them some months or a year before, and they're up constructed and all. And I don't know how we're supposed to handle the, things differently. The judge talked about this was a matter of great importance, or some terminology similar to that. But there are state and federal laws we're taught about as Planning Commission members. We have to abide by these laws. They say you cannot discriminate against one religion over another. And so I don't know. I was quoted in the paper, I think, as saying that the judge was asking us to discriminate. In my heart, I feel he is, because we're looking at this separately or differently than we did the Church of Christ or Baptist Church or whatever church is up and down the street. This thing had kind of died down as far as at my house, as far as phone calls and emails and all, and it's fired right back up again, And I'm getting all these calls, or some calls, and they're talking about the evils of Islam and Sharia law and stuff. And if some of these stuff people are saying is true, they need to call the sheriff's department, because we're planners and we're looking at a site plan. And even Judge Corlew said Islam is a religion. That's part of his ruling. That's the first round. And a religious use is a use by right. And all we're looking at a site plan is if it meets the parking and the drainage and the landscaping and the setbacks and things like that. We can't turn something down because we don't like somebody's ideologies. And so I just hope the people out there realize that this is not a rezoning. This is not anything else. This was simply a site plan. And like Doug said, this body here, there's 4 of us on here that are on planning. We were the lucky ones or unlucky ones that had to vote on it or see or deal with it. But the other 17 people in this room haven't had a chance to vote one way or the other on anything except for to pay for the lawsuit or not. And this thing has gotten way far out of hand, and I think we ought to at least see it through. I think we've handled it as correctly as we know how. And I'm going to vote to appeal this and do the right thing and just keep moving forward.
Commissioner Farley.
Early in public comments, there was a speaker up here that got to talking about Sharia law and all those things. None of us 21, I mean, I can speak for myself, but I think I know the rest of the 20 commissioners here well enough to know nobody up here believes in Sharia law. Nobody. Nobody wants it. Nobody believes it. And, I was on planning when it's come off, and I didn't go back because didn't have the time, for one. We voted on, and like Will said, we voted on a site plan. Is all we voted on. We didn't vote on no building, no mosque out there. We voted on a site plan. And the Planning Commission did exactly what they've done in the past on every other religious organization out, in the past. If someone out there, well, the speaker spoke and said that she's got evidence. She told me the other day on the phone, she's got evidence that there's terrorists out there. That's when I told her, you need to call the sheriff. A county commissioner has nothing to do with terrorism. I can't enforce terrorism. That's law enforcement, and Homeland Security needs to handle those issues. Not me as a county commissioner, or not anybody as an ordinary citizen can do that. So, I see the side of appealing it. The county commission is not involved in it, per se. It's a planning commission. There's 2 separate bodies here. That'd be like the Senate getting involved in the House's business, or the House getting involved in the Senate's business. There's two different bodies. So I can see a reason to appeal it, but I can also see a reason that the Planning Commission have it. So That's kind of my thoughts right now.
Any other discussion? Let's see, Commissioner Sandlin and then Commissioner Gooch again.
Mr. Cope, our appeal is appealing the decision of Judge Corlew in the advertising piece as a whole.
Yes, the decision to appeal would be to have the Court of Appeals review the court's decision on whether the notice that was presented by the county in the Murfreesboro Post was adequate public notice for this particular meeting of the Regional Planning Commission. That's what we'll be asking the Court of Appeals to review with respect to this matter.
Well, and I thought in years past or something, this has come up about the Post, and it had been ruled that it is a sufficient paper or means of advertisement, or however you want to say that legally.
Well, the State Attorney General, that's probably what you're referring to, has issued 2 previous opinions that the Murfreesboro Post was, in fact, a newspaper of general circulation, which historically has been viewed by most of the legal community that advertisements in a newspaper of general circulation of that type were sufficient notice for public advertisements of meetings. In this case, the court held otherwise. The court, as I've shared with you previously, said based on the totality of circumstances, and the court said because of the extreme importance that was involved in this particular public issue, this being the Islamic Center, that the notice should have been more than what historically would have been done for others. And so the court said the notice was inadequate because of its totality of circumstances that, and I'll just read from the opinion briefly. It says, again, and I'm quoting from the court's opinion, we note that the statutory law and the case law does not expressly state what notice is legally necessary. We find this to be true because the notice which is proper in each case is dependent upon the totality of the circumstances. Where only routine matters are discussed at a regularly scheduled meeting, comparatively little notice may be necessary. But by contrast, when a major issue of importance to all citizens is being discussed at a specially called meeting, the greatest notice available may be required. So, in other words, the court is basically saying that, as I read the opinion, that the county or other governmental bodies are going to have to start making decisions in terms of what kind of notice they give depending upon the nature of the item that's being presented. And again, Chancellor Corlew is a learned judge. He's a very capable and competent jurist. I have every reason to believe that he decided this case, as he does all cases, on the merits and fairly and impartially, but it does leave a lot of unanswered questions as far as from the policy of the county and how it goes forward in terms of handling notice, what's required, et cetera. And it also leaves, in a very uncertain fashion, how we treat certain religious organizations differently than others, and whether, if we did that, the county would be opening itself up to potential liability for violating RLUIPA and RFRA, which are federal and state laws that apply, that say you cannot and you shall not discriminate between religious organizations when reviewing matters of this type, that you've got to treat everybody the same. I've rambled a little bit, I apologize. But
I'm proud you did, because that's one major issue that I had a problem with on this whole thing. Is it seemed like the judge was saying we needed to treat them differently, which I didn't think we could treat any applicant differently, whether you were an applicant for a church, an applicant for a subdivision, an applicant for a baseball field, or what. I mean, anything that come through Planning Commission, that we had to advertise it in this realm and in this way, and we treat everybody the same. And that's what we've got to appeal then on this situation. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Gooch, and then Commissioner P., excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my long-term fear is that if we do what the judge has instructed us to do, which is to discriminate against members of the community based upon who you are, how large the organization is, that's going to cause multiple lawsuits in years to come. And that's why I asked the question, how much is the appeal? I think that $15,000 to $25,000 would be a good investment now to save hundreds of thousands of dollars defending lawsuits. Cause I just can't imagine appellate court agreeing that we should discriminate. So again, I don't have a legal mind. They could decide anything. I feel like that we would win the appeal, and the investment now could save hundreds of thousands of dollars in the years to come.
Commissioner P.
I've been on planning 8 years. I'm not on there now. Never voted on this MOST issue on anything. Got an opportunity tonight to really to vote to appeal. I thought, until I was told, it really didn't matter whether I voted to appeal or not, because the Planning Commission's already voted to appeal, so it's going to be appealed. It's got nothing to do with how I'm going to vote tonight. But the problem that I've got is not with the planning commissioners. You guys work hard. I've done it too. And you work with the information you're given. And the problem I got was some of the information that you guys got. And I'm just like anybody else standing here. You know, I'm a Christian, and we can all repeat that a dozen times so people are sick of hearing it. But I'm not going to give up my rights as an American citizen by discriminating against an American Muslim that wants to worship the way he wants to worship. That's all there is to that. I'm not going to do that. But having said that, they also, since they're Americans and they live here in America, have to live to the same standards that the rest of us do, and we don't discriminate that way either. You know, that's part of probably what this lawsuit is. The planning commissioners, and I feel for you guys. I feel for myself because I'm the one catching most of the calls. Formerly was in my district. That's been passed on since we've been rezoned, by the way. I'm letting everybody know that this mosque is no longer in the 4th district. And I won't say who. Y'all can figure that out on your own. But anyway, and this is really the only time I've had to talk about some of these issues now. This is my opinion. I have talked to the planning director about this. I've talked to the mayor about this. I've talked to our attorney about this. And you may or may not know some of the things I'm fixing to say, but you know, you were given some information that I don't feel like was true or fully true, which to me is a falsehood if you don't tell the whole truth. One's traffic. Okay, last month or your last meeting, you just approved what, and it hadn't even come to us yet, something out on Highway 96. Isn't that right, Jack? Don't you have something over there? Did y'all put a turning lane on that? I bet you did. Put a turning lane on it, and they said there are going to be about 60 people a day there. Well, I've reviewed, y'all watching, I've reviewed this quite a few times when y'all met. Steve, you brought up traffic. And, you know, you got a concession. Well, we'll make it a one-way loop there on the little drive there. But turning lanes didn't come up. You know, I testified in court, in Chancellor Corlew's court. One of the big beefs that I've got about this is traffic. Now, you can call it whatever you want to. If you're saying I'm hiding behind that to protect my Christianity and I don't want Muslims here, you can think of it all you want to, but they need to be at the same standard. If there was a Church of Christ building going in over there on that little road, I would say put in a turn lane. And enough of you have been here long enough to see me. If something's gone in my district that was big enough, I've insisted they put turn lanes there. Well, that's just one of the issues. There's also a dead body that never was brought up over there when you were talking about a burial. There's some things that really bother me about what happened in this, and it bothered a lot of people, and I think that's part of the reason that we're catching all this flack. And I think there's a problem over there that needs to be straightened out. And I'm not talking about these commissioners sitting here. I'm talking about the information you were given and some of the decisions that were made that y'all didn't make, that were changed after y'all's deliberation and how you changed things. But I'm going to vote no on this appeal. I'm sick of this, ready for it to be done with. I'm tired of spending money on it. So there's my opinion. It's going to be appealed regardless.
Anyone else wish to speak that hasn't spoken before we go back to Mr. Gooch? Mr. Gooch?
Well, I just have a question, Commissioner P., maybe. So you're saying that the mosque probably needs a turn lane, and you testified that if the Church of Christ was going there, you would want them to have a turn lane. Does a Baptist church have a turn lane?
No, it doesn't, but it also doesn't have 1,000 people. It's only got a couple hundred.
Here we go, discrimination.
Let's try to be respectful.
I'm telling you my opinion.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner McAdoo.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this. Now, no matter which way I vote tonight, it's going to be appealed.
Well, that's correct. The Planning Commission has voted to appeal, unless they were to change their vote and decide not to appeal before the 30 days. But as of now, they have voted to appeal this.
And no matter which way I vote tonight, if they appeal, we are going to have to pay.
That is correct.
Any other discussion? If there's not any other discussion, I think you're ready to vote. Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
16 yes, 5 no. Motion passes.
Is there any other business to come before this body tonight?
Pardon me, 15 yes, 6 no.
16 yes, excuse me.
15 yes, 6 no.
15 yes, 6 no's. All right. Any other business to come before the body? Commissioner Sandlin?
Yes, sir. The Blackman Barbecue is just right around the corner here. June the 22nd, starts at 5 o'clock at the Lane Agri Park this time. It's at the Lane Agri Park, right down from Sam's. So it'll be plenty of parking for everybody right there. Cool, nice building to go into. Plenty of barbecue. Going to have an auction. Going to have good music and everything. So on a lighter note, summertime event, don't miss it. Blackman Barbecue, June 22nd. I will have tickets at your next meeting for you if you need some.
Commissioner Ely.
I would like to announce that we will have a public hearing on the proposed budget Monday evening here in this courtroom starting at 7 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. And now Commissioner Farley.
Just want to let everybody know that may not already know it. Funeral tomorrow night, visitation for Bart Smith, and then his service will be Saturday. So Bart was a long-time employee for the county, and he's going to be missed. But wanted to let everybody know.
Any other business? Commissioner Allen.
Smyrna's hosting Simply Smyrna Saturday afternoon or in the evening from 4 to 7 p.m. It's always lots of food, fun, street fair, lots of great artisans, so come support Smyrna.
Any other people wish to make any announcements? If there's no other business to come before this body, we are adjourned. Thank you.